Hello, caffeinators. Welcome to another episode of the VetTech Taproom. Coming
We're
to
allowing
you on
dogs in now.
yes. We do allow dogs in the tap room too. So we're actually coming to you for a special Christmas episode, as this will be uploaded on Christmas Day, and we have two amazing guests in the tap room with us tonight.
This is our first ever having guests in
Yeah,
the tap
I know.
room, right?
It's pretty awesome. I hope they enjoy it in here. It's nice and cozy on this. Well, it's warm here in Southern
got a fire
California. But we're just going to have some cool organic conversation about a couple things that are going on in our profession right now, and who better to talk to than Liz Houston and Steven Sital. So we hope you enjoy this episode. Merry Christmas. And I just want to say, I know for me, Christmas is always the most wonderful time of the year, but I know for a lot of you, it's not. It can be a really hard time. So just want to say, see you, and I hear you as well. And I hope you get through the holiday season and come out the other side when the days start getting a little bit longer and a little bit brighter and a little bit warmer, and are on a better path, kind of coming out of it as we get into the new year, which is probably my second favorite holiday is New Year's. Always really cool to kind of get a fresh start. So, Dave, why don't we go ahead and just jump right in and get started?
Yeah,
right?
let's get right into it, because this is a tap room that it's usually just you and I, and
Yeah.
we thought this was important to have these two people on,
Yeah.
because usually the tap rooms are just you and I discussing hot button topics
That nobody wants to listen to.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
now we're gonna just open the doors and let Liz and Steven tell us what's going on, because they seem to have their fingers on the pulse of what's going on.
On so much. So we're going to start off, Stephen. I wanted to ask you, because you had sent this to me. I'm not on TikTok, and it was completely unfamiliar to me. But as I understand it, if I recall correctly, a veterinarian in Texas, who I believe works for Veg, and please correct me if anywhere I'm wrong, was either referring to or calling, and I think that's actually a Veg-wide thing, to the veterinary technicians and veterinary assistants as nurses or veterinary nurses, and is in a little bit of hot water with the Texas Veterinary Medical Board, and posted something on TikTok about it. So if you could maybe give us a little bit of background on that, and we'll have some chat about that.
Sure. So there was a veterinarian, multiple veterinarians actually, in the state of Texas that were reported for using the title nurse when referring to their veterinary staff. I am not sure if they were calling a credentialed veterinary technician or a veterinary assistant a nurse, but regardless, the term nurse was being used, and I think you definitely hit the nail on the head as far as kind of the cultural appropriation of that title within that particular company, as well as other companies. What I found disturbing about the particular TikTok, and then like the subsequent 6 or 7 after that, were not necessarily the fact that this person feels sad that someone turned them in, that they were angry that someone turned them in. I think that's very fair. It's a very fair way to feel. I would feel betrayed also. But what really got me is when trying to educate this person, whether it was myself or the other people that were chiming in on the TikTok, about the terminology within the nation right now, and in particular Texas, they weren't having it. They were not having it, and it just fell back into this victimization. How could we do this to each other? Leaning into these tiers that felt weaponized against people that are actually trying to advocate to follow the law within the country. And it just kind of snowballed into this he said, she said, let's look for the person that turned in me, because we should name and shame, is what one of the comments said, which the creator did like. Which just turned into the same amount of toxicity that they were complaining about, which was really interesting to me. And subsequently, you know, this same creator also created a video recently with two veterinary technicians or assistants, I'm not really sure, holding a cat without radiology gloves on, and people are like,
was
hey,
the same person?
Also, by the way, not only no gloves, no eye protection, no thyroid shield.
And then again, playing victim, or the comment that was getting me is judgmental much. Like, I don't, if you're going to have a social media platform, you need to be prepared to take some criticism, whether you are just going to ignore it, whether you are going to clap back, which is like something that I am familiar doing. But when you have this persona of come with kindness, this toxic positivity all around you, which is something I'm not known for, thankfully. When you get called out for that, God, I don't even know what to say. You need to be prepared to handle yourself appropriately, and again, listen and
to not immediately get defensive. I think
be accountable. Yeah.
And anyway, this creator on both of those occasions have been educated, but I'm not really sure how interested in or what the comprehension was like. I guess to put it nicely.
And I think it's telling when, especially on. The nurse thing was one thing. The attempted doxing was very concerning. It felt very bullying, and also, she was trying to make it seem like the people who are opposed to the VNI were the ones who were behind the reporting, which is
you and I.
Right. And it's just completely unfounded. There was no proof. The process is entirely anonymous anyway.
Right.
And looking at the comments, like, you can really understand why the process needs to be anonymous. It was frightening to me. And I didn't like the tenor or the tone of it. And then even worse, when I talked to her and I said, I don't really like the tone of this, and I don't feel like, I hope that's not your intention, but I didn't really get any feeling that it wasn't her intention. I think she really wanted to name and shame someone, and I thought that was very that was disappointing, because like Stephen said, you're perfectly. I would be surprised if someone wasn't upset about getting a board complaint. It's not, I can't be fun. It can't feel good. I get it. But you can't, I don't know what she was trying to achieve. It was quite frustrating. And then to pile on to that, like right on the heels of that, to pile on with the radiology stuff, it just, what it said to me more than anything is, I don't care about the people who work for me.
Yeah.
I don't care about their safety. I don't care. We've always done it this way. Oh, come talk to me when you get cancer in your hands. Ha, ha, ha. Like, that's not funny. People have actually
gotten cancer,
have diseases related to their work in veterinary medicine. And I don't know if this is the case, but what it feels like to me is taking advantage of people who don't know any better.
Right.
People who love veterinary medicine, love animals, they come to work, they haven't gone to tech school, they don't know what is right or wrong, what is legal or illegal, and then everyone is doing it one way, so they're like, oh, okay, I'll just do it that way. And then these things can have long-term health consequences, and they don't even realize it when they're doing it, because they just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're not, and we know, data shows, statistics show, they're not going to be here for very long.
That's right.
So why are we going to invest in changing how we do it, or making it better, or?
And the thing about the hands-free radiology, which is, this is a different topic, right? But now that we've broached it, in fact, I don't have a lot of positive things to say about VCA. No one will accuse me of being a fan of VCA. But they have instituted a policy. They are working on getting it out to every hospital that no one is in the radiation room when x-rays are being exposed. No one.
Yeah.
I was in a VCA hospital today, and they have a sign up that says, I forget what it was, 10 days since we've had to go into radiology. So they are.
And that is 100% how it should be. And I will give them all the deserved kudos for that, because that is amazing. And that is something that it seems like they are truly pushing out to their people, trying to make sure that that is happening. And more power to them, and thank them for doing that, because I think that is the future. I think it has to be the future. And hey, I mean, I'll give you a little segue here, because if we're going to talk about nurse, in England, they all do hands-free radiology. No RVN is in a radiation room while x-rays are being exposed. So the hospital my wife is a veterinarian at, it's a hospital that I worked at for 12 years when I got my VTS. It's where actually we met. She was saying a couple of weekends ago, they were, of course, short-staffed like everybody else, and they're corporate now. I won't name which one, but it's a very different vibe from when I was there. And she said one girl must have taken 30 x-rays that day. But on the flip side, she's only been out of school 3 or 4 years now. She is advocating for like hands-free radiology, get out of the room, and she's getting pushback from the staff. They don't want to do it that way. And so it's actually, there are both sides to that, like some of us that have been doing it this way for so long, or, like, hey, we don't have the time. We this, we that, at some point you just got to do it.
It's interesting, when we instituted this in the last hospital where I was a manager of people, and in my service for surgery and neurology, you would get written up if you were found in the x-ray room taking x-rays. And there was definitely pushback, like, oh, it's so much quicker if we don't use sedation, or I don't know how to use these bean bags or tape. But once they got used to it, they loved it. And they didn't want to go back to being in the room. It was impressive. And the emergency service at the time, and all the other services at the time, did not have that same requirement. And I started pushing that. And I used to tell the doctors, if you're going to force these people if you want an x-ray without sedation, you need to go take the x-ray, or you need to be one of the people holding it. It's not fair to continuously expose the same people to unnecessary radiation when we have other methods. And eventually it did catch on.
That's right.
But I did want to go back to kind of the beginning of this conversation and just put I don't know, a proclamation, a statement, something out there. I can't use my words today. That, with the particular TikTok creator that we were talking about, there's this sense and these conversations that are happening within my social circles, and they've reached out to my personal friends, asking why I have a vendetta against them. And I just want to make it clear for the record that I don't have a vendetta against these people.
No, not at all.
When I call people out on things, which are usually veterinarians or people that technicians or veterinary assistants in particular don't feel comfortable calling out, it's because I have the luxury of not feeling like I'm going to have my career stripped away from me. So I am very aware of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And as our friend Amy Newfield said in her fantastic podcast today, we all do things in a different way. Some people come a lot more gently compared to maybe I do. But I just want to throw it out there. I'm not trying to be a mean guy or a bully or whatever. I just have the luxury of not needing to use all this fodder in an effort to protect my profession or my career or my reputation. So I want to lay that out there. I don't have anything against this TikTok person now. Well, I mean, she's a little bit annoying now because she's reaching out to my friends and stuff. But prior to that, there was no issue.
No, and I think it's Stephen and I have suffered the professional consequences that we are going to suffer, and they've already happened. I'm not sure I don't know. I suppose that's probably a bold statement to make. I'm sure there are always more repercussions that could come along. But I think this also leads into the next topic, right? Which is, this is, I think, part of the reason that Stephen and I were both excluded from being able to appear on the NAVTA ballot, is because we use our voices in a way that people don't like.
Right.
And I say people, some people. And, in the meantime, in private, I get messages, I get emails, I know Stephen does too, that say, thank you so much for speaking out. Thank you for talking about this. Thank you for taking a stand. I don't feel comfortable. I really need my job, whatever it might be. But Stephen and I are to a degree, we're insulated, or we're just at a point where it's more, we are able to do that. And then by doing that, if we can light the way, if we can, I think I talked to Stephen earlier today and say,
tip of the spear.
We're the tip of the spear, and eventually the shaft of the spear follows the tip. But, it's hard to be the tip of the spear.
See, you can say that in the tap room. You can't say that in the cafe.
Fair enough.
You can say whatever you want here. I'm not editing anything. This is all just going out as is.
I didn't mean any innuendo by that. But it's true. And I think that if we can be an example for folks, and I don't want to self-aggrandize or anything, but I just think that the more people, and this is, again, why I was so thankful and grateful to Amy for her podcast today, because she is a true leader in this field. She is someone that so many people look up to, including me, one of my vet tech heroes. And to listen to her use her voice in that way today was remarkable, and I think should be applauded, because I was super proud of her, and I thought it was really well done, and I'm glad that she did it.
Agreed.
Well,
and
I think one of the things that...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I think one of the things that is missed here, and I'm not trying to be pandering here, but the two of you are so vocal about issues and opinions and topics in this field, because you care about this profession, you care about the people in this profession, and you don't care what comes back on you for it, which I think is... And I said this to Jeff when we were talking, through text over you guys being elected or going to be on the ballot, and we were like, oh, how are the two of them gonna fit into the realm there? And my comment was that they both want change, and there's no better way to make change than from the inside. Yeah. So
that's it.
The fact that you even wanted to do that, I don't know why they would even.
Yeah.
Well, I had to laugh listening to Amy's podcast today, because she's like, oh, they're small and it's all volunteer. And I was like, they turned away
volunteers.
They turned away 14 people who wanted to volunteer to work on to work to improve the association. And I mean, I don't know what everybody else's platform was going to be, but I want to bring more transparency. I want to bring more accountability. I want to bring more responsiveness, listening to the members. And there are people who say, oh, well, NAVTA serves their members. NAVTA listens to their members, but those people who aren't members who are here saying, well, I won't join because I don't like what they do, why should we listen to them? I'm like, well, okay, I guess if you don't want to grow your membership, I guess don't. And also, you're not listening to all your members, because you have general membership meetings where everybody's muted. You don't allow questions. You don't even answer them. You say, submit the questions and we'll answer them, and you don't answer them afterwards. You submit bylaw changes to the memberships that they have to vote on en masse, instead of allowing them to vote up or down on each individual change. And that's just not okay.
Right.
It's not okay.
So we're going to kind of change into the NAVTA election situation here. I just want to say too, though, before we get into that, I don't want to, this is obviously going to be a little bit of a one-sided discussion, but I want to put this out there that Dave and I would still love to have this discussion with anybody from NAVTA. This is not the Vet Tech Cafe against NAVTA. This is not Stephen and Liz against NAVTA. Nothing like that. We're just having a discussion, and we would love to have this discussion with whoever decides these things, or however they could, because again, that's transparency. That's what we all want.
Right. And what Amy said today is true. NAVTA is the voice for us, and it is the biggest voice. And, people have reached out to me and said, oh, we need a new association. We need to have a different association that's against NAVTA. And I'm like, how? NAVTA is the organization that these other organizations look to.
Right. So I had that thought myself too, of why don't we just form another organization, but like Amy was saying on her podcast today, I will be dead before change happens.
Right.
In that.
Yeah,
in that regard. So
I know. Oh, that was a little too real, but
I mean, it's true.
I mean, it's true.
It's true.
Because
It's
who
true.
does the AVMA look to for
Right.
the technician's
Right.
take on whatever issue? It's NAVDA.
Right. Right.
Who does NAVC look to? It's NAVDA. Who does the AAVSB reach out to when they want feedback about the VT&E or about how credentialing is going to happen? It's NAVDA.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
That is the voice. And so
Right.
if we want it to truly represent us, we need to be members, and then we need to participate. And we
Yeah.
need to...
and
you
that
know,
participation needs to be valued.
Right. And accepted, right? So many people have come to me after and said, I have tried to volunteer. I have tried to be on a committee. I have, I reach out and offer help, and I get nothing, or banned or said no, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that is so damaging. It's just
Yeah.
damaging for the organization. Number one, because I truly believe in that collaboration is the way we come to the best decisions and the best outcomes. And if collaboration means not just with people who agree with you. You gotta have
Right.
everybody.
You gotta hear it all.
And if you don't do that, you're not making good decisions. And
Right.
you don't have good data, and you're
Right.
not making good decisions. So
Right. So let's start at step one. You both were nominated for the board.
yeah.
So
do we know who nominated you, or
I was just going to say we don't have to know, or you can say if you like. But so I guess my first question is going to be, to your understanding, did that mean as being nominated, you were going to be on the ballot, like you were running for the position? Like that's what it sounds like to me. I'm just curious if there was any communication that may have said otherwise.
Yeah, I believe the email. So both Liz and I were not self-nominated. We did have an active, good standing member nominate us.
Okay.
So we did receive an email saying, do we accept the nomination? Can you please fill out this portion of the nomination form? And then we didn't hear anything until we got the email saying that there were so many nominees and we decided not to choose you.
And that email came the day before the ballot went out.
Yes. And for clarity's sake, I was nominated for the treasurer position. And when the ballot came out, the treasurer position was uncontested. So the incumbent, who I really admire and love, Harold Davis, he gets to stay in that position. And as far as I'm aware, I fully meet all of the requirements, having served on the NAVTA board before and serving the last 4 years on the CBTS committee.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit surprising to me that it was uncontested, which I just found particularly interesting.
Yeah. And I served on a NAVTA committee briefly several years ago. I have been a member since 2004. I have been in leadership of other organizations, including the California RVT Association, including my specialty academy, AIMVT. So I met, if you read the requirements and what they're looking for, I met those requirements. Now, I will say in my case, as president of the union, I think that there are very legitimate reasons that an organization might say, this is probably not a great fit because it's going to endanger our opportunities for sponsorship or whatever, right? That, well, maybe you can't be, maybe your interests are muddied, you have a conflict of interest, whatever. And you know what? That is a totally fair criticism and a totally fair reason that they might not want me to be a part of the board. And I get it. And if that was the reason, I'm happy to hear that. And I totally understand that, as a matter of fact, because that's a choice.
Sure.
I've talked to Stephen about this a lot. That's a choice I made, and I've never made it a secret that I'm the head of the union. It's not like I was trying to slip in, unawares. But I also, I have, now that I am in leadership on lots of different organizations. So, for example, NAMB, when I became an administrator of that group, I had a conversation with the folks on the board who said, we are concerned about your union activities and how they're going to intersect with your work in NAMV. And, can you not recruit in NAMV? Can you will you be able to do that? And I was like, no, of course. These are two completely, there are, in my mind, of course, there are overlaps between organizing and mental health. But
right.
No, of course, that's not the place. So
right.
and I think if anyone looked through NAMV, they would see that is something that I have definitely held to. I was appointed to be on the California Veterinary Medical Association RVT committee, and they came to me also and said, we're concerned about your union activity and serving the CVMA. And can you separate those two responsibilities? Can you do both? Can you represent RVTs in your district, but also while you're also doing your union organizing? And, I just pointed to my other organizational experience and what I had been doing and said, I don't think that, I'm very open and transparent about the conflict of interest, and I'm happy also always to be called out on it. If someone's like, that crossed a line, I of course want to hear that, but that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to, I would love to hear from the nominating committee. I would love for them to I would love to sit down with them and have a conversation about why they made the decisions that they made. And I feel like my gut feeling is they don't want to have that conversation because that's not the reason and that it's going to be a difficult conversation.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think the big veil that needs to be lifted, I'm in a similar situation as Liz as far as some of the things that NAPTA might find unsavory about me. I know their past president, Ed, loves me. I have the same mutual respect and love for him also. But if you look at the eligibility section in the new NAPTA bylaws, Article 7, it specifically says the credentialed member meets the eligibility requirements set forth herein and any other requirements set forth by the NAPTA Board of Directors. There's no description of what that actually is.
And there's no list of disqualifying things either.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you go down to section 6 of the eligibility. It also says being mindful of the association's desire for diversity, equity, and inclusion, the nominating committee shall prepare and submit to the president a ballot containing at least one candidate for each seat on the board of directors to be filled. So it's interesting because not only in that diversity definition would I include a BIPOC person, someone from the LGBT family, but also diversity of opinion and how we go about ourselves within this industry. And look at our federal government. I can't say that it's working super well right now, but we have a diversity of opinion, and we have to work together to get this stuff out and move things forward. And I think we have better overall approaches when we have these differences of opinions working together instead of this echo chamber that we see now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's like, Liz, even in your post today, when you shared Amy's podcast post, that you and Amy don't always agree or come at things the same way, but you're trying to accomplish the same goals. And
that's right.
And I think that's what Amy said a lot in her podcast is that we might all be wanting different things. We might all want to be doing things different ways, but we're all still trying to get the same goal. And I think that's been kind of lost in this is that, yes, you guys have different opinions or maybe you have different ways of getting there. But number one, you have the ability to recruit a much greater membership than they've had in any particular recent history. But also, it's a different set of ideas that a lot of people might gravitate to, and you're still going for the same things. And I think that gets forgotten. I guess one question I would have, the rejection letter, if you will, or the letter, you've been left off the nomination or off the ballot. Is it just a form letter that all you guys got the same? There was no conversation about. That's just so disappointing.
And I reached out to Phil and asked for the feedback. Why was I excluded? And he said he wasn't at liberty to discuss the discussions of the nominating committee. And so I said, well, that is disappointing, because if someone wanted to do this work at a different time, and, maybe they wanted to try again next year, it would be helpful if they knew the reasons so that they could correct them, so that they would be eligible for a future election. Because, and for that wasn't even me that I was asking for. That was people like Angela Rathman and Jen Serling, who, and there was another director who I know was nominated. And I mean, I don't know if she didn't meet the qualification. I don't know her, but there were 16 people who were left off, or 14 people who were left off of the ballot. And I think if those people want to serve the organization, it would behoove the organization to let them know why they didn't make the bar this time and what they could do for the next one.
Yeah.
But they,
I mean,
I just don't understand the logic of telling you you're nominated, and then it seemed like it was a very short. Was it like a couple days between seeing your post that I was nominated for this, and we were like, "Oh, this is great."
No, it was there was a good bit of time. The nominations were due, I think, November 8th, November 16th, something like that. They were due early to mid-November, and then they didn't let us know until, I think, November 30th. That we the ballots went out December 1st.
But why tell you were nominated just to say, sorry, we're not going to do that?
Yeah,
I don't understand the logic behind that.
I don't either, but I'm just really stuck on the process in general. So the bylaws stipulate that the past president is the nominations committee chair, which he is. So regardless, we're beholden to whoever is in this chair position, whether they like somebody or don't like somebody, and whether they are going to be put on the ballot, which I think is the most frustrating part of all of this. And it's frustrating too, because I did put a post out about this when the new bylaw changes were proposed. I said, you guys need to read this. This is not okay, because when we had to vote as NAPTA members to accept these new bylaws, which they had an overwhelmingly positive response to these changes, it was a yes or no question for all the changes. It wasn't divvied out into this section, I have concerns about this section I want to say yes or no to. It was just yes or no, take it or leave it. And now we're stuck.
All or nothing.
And NAFTA gets to pull that card and get to say, well, the NAFTA membership voted. And they're absolutely right. And that's our fault. That is our fault.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's our fault. I will say I don't think it's the members' fault. I mean, I don't want to dilute your message of pay attention and participate in your association, because you need to do that. You really need to do that. But the fact that they didn't allow you to vote up or down on each individual change is the bigger problem, because I think they would have had 91% acceptance on some things and 0% acceptance on other changes. But they didn't let people have that degree of autonomy, and that was disappointing. And I will say AVECTN did an amazing job with their bylaws changes, and they laid out exactly what they were changing, the rationale for the change, what it was going to impact, and they let you vote on each individual change. And honestly, that is the way I believe it should be done in a membership organization.
Yeah.
And the biggest irony, I'm sorry, Jeff, the biggest irony with these bylaw changes is, even with the bylaw changes and leaning on the bylaws, when NABTA made their statement as to their nominating process, the bylaws still were not followed. And that is because my dear friend, our dear friend, Erin Spencer, who I love, I have nothing bad to say against, but she was not qualified to be running in this race. And I did bring that up to her. She agreed with me. She is a great person of integrity, reached out to Phil and withdrew her nomination, which is appropriate, because it does say in the bylaws, if you have served as past president, you are not allowed to serve as president again. And what was striking in the email about Erin's withdrawal that was sent from NAFTA, there was no mention that they were outside of the bylaws.
Right.
I'm glad it showed Erin's integrity, but there was no admission that they messed up. And
Right.
sometimes it's okay to just say, you know,
Yeah.
we messed up on this one.
Sometimes it's always okay
Yeah.
to say,
Yeah.
hey,
Oh, it
we
is
messed
always
up.
okay. You're
It's
right.
always okay. We made a mistake. This was
Yeah.
this was an error. This was an oversight, whatever it was. Even, hey, we don't like Liz and Steven. We don't want them on our board. We
Totally
think
fine.
it's going to be really uncomfortable and we don't want it to happen.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, I'd rather hear the honest answer.
Yeah.
Because right now it's so amorphous and it feels very
It
I
feels
don't
random.
know.
Yeah,
random,
it
but not
does.
random.
It does because
Random, but not random. Well,
I
it'd be
only
one thing
know
if
of.
it'd be one thing if it was just the two of you because
Right.
of all the things
Agreed.
we're talking
Right,
about. But
right.
but people like Angela and some of
Right.
the other people that left off, like
I
that
was just gonna say
doesn't make sense.
Angela and Jen. I mean, assuming they meet the NAFTA qualifications. Like Angela, I can't think of a
think
less
of a bad thing to say
controversial person in our field.
Right.
You know, she's a VTS. She's published books. She does a lot of work in this field, and Jen Serling as well. You know, yeah, and I know who nominated Angela, and that's very surprising. That person was left off again. I just don't know. Like when I saw the ballot, there was 6 people running for all of these
6 or 8 or
positions,
something
and
like that,
yet
yeah.
you know it's great that there's all of these people, a record number of nominations. Yet there's only 6 people on the ballot for four different positions. Like what?
Right.
Well, I mean, you two were in California. We just voted in November. There was like 30 people
God.
for the governor. Like what? Like if they were nominated, I sure I get it. If they don't meet the qualifications, yeah, leave them off. Let them
Yeah.
know. Hey, like you said, Liz, you're deficient in this area. We'd like to consider you in the future, but until this happens,
Right.
But yeah, so I think that's frustrated a lot of people, and
Yeah.
I think for so long, people have been calling for transparency from NAFTA, and we're still not getting it. And
Yeah.
that kind of leads us to, again, another NAFTA discussion. Unless anything, Dave, were you going to say something else?
Oh, no.
Steven, sorry.
He just saw my hand. You know, it's
Oh.
before we jump.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out another section in the bylaws, Article 5, Revocation and Reinstatement of Membership, Section 1, Revocation. If in the opinion of the Board of Directors, a member of the association is believed to have participated in activities which are not in the best interest of the profession and or the association, said members shall be notified. Where's the accountability for the board members that put together this ballot? I know that I am not going to change this ballot. I know that I am going to lose this fight, but I want all of the members to demand accountability because in my opinion, as a paying member, what NAFTA just did was not in the best interest of the association or this industry. They just mired their own association and membership opinion and trust. But
I mean, you have
there
people
will be no
who-
accountability. So
Yeah,
Right.
you have people who, I mean, I know people who told me they joined, so they could vote for me.
Right.
And and now I hear people say, well, I'm not going to renew because of all of this bullshit. I'm not going to renew. So how does that serve
Right.
a membership driven association?
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
I think they missed a big opportunity to get, like you said, Liz, people that would join just to vote for you. And Stephen, probably the same with you, of just getting voices that truly care about the profession, truly care about promoting this profession. And I feel like they've just shot themselves in the foot by all of the social
feels
media
that
crap
way.
that's gone.
It sure
gone on.
does. And the big thing is that all of our organizations, membership organizations, NAFTA, CARVTA, whoever, like if you don't have membership, you have no clout. You have no ability to get anything done without members and without like a membership that actually represents a significant percentage of the people in your jurisdiction or in your profession
I
or
mean,
whatever it
and
is.
that's a whole other thing.
Yes.
And I know Stephen
Yes.
has the actual numbers on that, but their latest report, the latest NAFTA journal says they have 8,500 members.
It says
they
8,000.
do not. They don't break it down between credentialed, non-credentialed, or other supportive, right? Other supporters. So there's no breakdown there, even though we have asked for it repeatedly. They also don't call out how many of those were quote unquote automatic memberships, because there was a period of time where VCA automatically enrolled every credentialed technician in NAFTA. It was part of your onboarding. Here you go. Here's your NAFTA membership. I don't know if that's still happening, but it did happen for a long time. And I think Stephen did some math. But I mean, I know Stephen's going to give you some math, but I'll give you some math that the BLS says there are 118,000 or 118,000 veterinary technicians in the U.S., and they don't break down between assistants and technicians, which is a whole other problem, which, you know, who could be working on that at the national level with the BLS? I mean, maybe like NAVTA, but
Brainstorm that.
so 118,000 veterinary technicians in the U.S., and NAVTA has 8,000 members.
What's that percentage?
That's 7%.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting because in today's Veterinary Nurse, one of the board members, Marielle Hendricks, mentioned the 8,000 members. They estimated about 100,000 veterinary technicians / assistants in the United States. I'm actually going to update you a little bit, Liz. So the BLS now says there's 122,000 veterinary technicians assistants in the United States. And going back to what Liz was talking about, I call it voluntary membership. When you look at VCA and their member and their employee benefits for credentialed veterinary technicians, they do offer automatic membership to NAVTA. And per the VCA website, I'm happy to give you all the links. They said that they have 3,700 credentialed veterinary technicians, which drops down that 8,000 number to 4,300 voluntary members.
Wow. Basically,
if you were to include Banfield's numbers that claims 4,000 non-DVM employees, that cuts it down even more. So with my rough guesstimation of numbers, you have maybe 2,800 voluntary members of NAVTA. When you compare that to a state like California, where we have 10,000 registered veterinary technicians in our state, I mean, that's not even 30% in the state of California of representation. So it just boggles my mind that they hold this much power with these organizations. But again, I'm not saying that we should take it away, but we also just need to be very aware when NAVTA says, oh, our members this, our members that. Yeah, well, half of them don't even want to be here, don't really care to be here.
I mean, they're not engaged. They're not engaged members. They didn't choose to be members. They just ended up
and
it.
I'm sure that's not all of them, too, right? There's got to be some percentage of them that are like, oh, great, I've got an NAVTA membership.
Sure.
I can be part of that.
Of course. But still, it's still such a tiny, tiny, tiny amount. And especially when AVMA just announced this week that they just passed the 100,000 member mark. So AVMA has 100,000 members.
Yeah.
NAVTA has 8.
And how long has NAVTA been in?
Since
1981, I think Amy said on her podcast. 81.
81? So like 40 years. And they've got a grand total of 8,000 members.
Yeah.
And I don't see them doing anything to try to
recruit.
Right. Yeah.
I don't
agree.
don't see it. I don't know. I don't see a big drive. I don't see a push. I don't see folks out there doing true listening sessions to find out why did people leave? What would bring you back? What kind of benefits do you want? How can we bring you in?
Yeah.
I don't see any of that listening happening.
Yeah,
either.
I agree. So let's stay on the NAVTA train. Let's just go to a different car and talk about the survey. The mid-level, as much as we all love this phrase, if you have
this.
oh gosh,
I have some thoughts about this.
I would not have expected that.
Just today, new thoughts.
But the mid-level practitioner survey, it's an I think the one thing I want to say is for me, it was a really odd time. A really head scratching
Hey, look
time.
at this over here.
Look at this shiny
Yes,
thing.
it's like
Oh,
a
look at
bait and
these
switch.
keys. It's Daphne, right? Daphne wants the straw. You don't want her to play with the straw. Here are the shiny
No,
keys. Daphne,
they're silicone straws. She can
Yeah.
play with them all the time.
But I mean, that's
Yeah. It's Anyway, so please, thoughts. You have thoughts.
yeah. Okay, so, well, Stephen, do you want to go first?
I
do you
want to round this out because I feel like I know where you're going to go, but I just
already told you where I'm going to go.
I just want to say, yes, I do think it was an interesting pivot. If we're going to talk about planning or strategy or whatever, I do think it's an interesting pivot. But I also just want to stress that I personally did not find anything in the survey that was particularly frustrating or pointed. I do truly think they are trying to get opinions of the members about this particular issue, which is very, very similar to what happened to the Veterinary Nurse Initiative, where I was on the board that helped approve the Veterinary Nurse Initiative. It did not happen like we were told it was going to happen. Otherwise, you wouldn't hear me talking about the title change portion. I think they're forced to do the survey because they are being asked about it. And
Yes.
I know Liz will talk about this, but it's frustrating because we do have these big money corporations behind things like this.
Not just big money corporations. There are also universities behind this. Because
absolutely.
they want to develop programs where they can enroll people.
Yeah.
And I think, money, we are in a capitalistic society. That is always follow the money is always the answer.
And master's degrees are the biggest
right.
waste of higher education money
Right.
for a majority of them. Not all of them.
Right.
Not all
Right.
of them, but
Right.
most of them.
So I'll start first with just my basic thoughts about it, in terms of a master's degree, right? Which is, if we're talking about making this analogous to an NP, that's a master's degree. There's no question. If you want to be an NP, you have to get a bachelor's in nursing and a master's in nursing and then additional certification to become that NP. So great. I'm all for more education, more educational pathways for veterinary technicians. No question. If we look at the vast majority of veterinary technicians in this country, we have associate's degrees in veterinary technology. Some of us, very, very few of us have a bachelor's in veterinary technology. There are more and more programs coming out. Fantastic. We need them. We need that pathway. 100% behind it. But when we look at the available pool, because you can't get into a master's program if you don't have a bachelor's degree. So we're talking about a vanishingly small number of people.
Yeah.
And if you say, well, we'll take any bachelor. So for example, I have a bachelor's in English. I have a master's in education. Those are not veterinary technology degrees. I have an associate's of science, an AS in veterinary technology. What happens with people with AAS, with BAS versus AS and BS? These are all very fine distinctions, but they matter when we're talking about academia. All of those things matter. So what kind of master's program is it going to be?
Right.
Who is going to be admitted? Are you going to require any bachelor's? Is it going to be a science bachelor's? Is it going to be a bachelor's in veterinary technology? What is it? Because if you want to be an NP, it's a BSN. It's not a bachelor's in some random other thing. You need a bachelor's in nursing. And if you have a bachelor's in some other random thing and you want to go to nursing, you want to go to NP school, you want to get a master's in nursing, or even if you want to become a nurse and you already have a bachelor's degree, you have to do a post-grad completion program to get that nursing certification. So there are lots of nurses are just so far ahead of us in this area.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So I know that these discussions are coming from a scarcity mindset. And what they're coming from is fear. The idea that someone is going to come and take this away from us, that We want to be in the conversation. We want to be in charge of whatever this thing is going to turn out to be way down the line. It needs to be our thing. And for me, and this is a realization I came to literally today. You know what? If the vets want to do this, let them have it. The AVMA can make their go ahead, vets, have at it. You can have all the PAs you want. Good luck. Good luck with your programs. Admit all of the bachelors in biology and microbio and chem. Take them all. Take all the science-related people and train them up to be veterinarian assistants, or whatever it's going to be called, which I guess we can't call them assistants. So whatever they're going to call them, mid-level practitioners. Yeah. And you know what? Go ahead.
MLPs.
Go ahead. Get all of those out there. And while you're doing that, while you're involved in that morass, we will be over here strengthening our scopes of practice in each individual state to make it so that your PAs can't do anything. Because if they're not credentialed technicians, they don't get to do our skills. So you guys can parse out whatever doctor skills you want to give to them. Great. Have at it. Take it. I don't want any part of it. Let us have our thing here. We're going to focus on our nursing skills. We're going to focus on making sure that those scopes of practice are tight. And we're going to develop our own educational programs. And ultimately, my ultimate goal, my BOHAG, is we become our own self-governing profession. We have boards of veterinary technology. We manage our own licensure. We do everything for ourselves, separated out from the veterinarians. That's how nurses are with doctors, and I believe that's how we should be with veterinarians. There is no reason for the veterinarian to be in charge of our side of the profession.
And how do we start that?
Yeah. Liz, going back to the education piece and these conversations, especially with some of the programs that are kind of piloting what a master's degree looks like and trying to think about things like equity, which when I've discussed this with that director, I now look back and I'm like, you know what? I was wrong because I was talking about equity and including people that have a bachelor's in health science or a bachelor's in English to fit into this master's program. But as you said, on the academia side, they can do whatever they want. But on the regulatory side, when these veterinary medical practice acts start opening up, they are not going to bend to this silly precedent that we just set, because then other professional licensure certifications that falls under consumer protection would have to accommodate the same kind of malarkey that we're suggesting here, which it just makes no sense. And then we also have the problem of, when is the Practice Act ever going to change? So again, I think I go back to Amy and Dave of I'll probably be dead before that happens. And then I think Jeff and I talked about this at one point. You know, there's this interest in creating this mid-level position, and a lot of technicians, especially the senior ones, are going to want to jump ship and go do these courses, but then you're just leaving this hole open of veterinary technicians that still needs to be filled. And Liz, you just sent me an article from Bob Lester about, what are we, 30 years away from the number of graduating class of veterinary technicians to fill what we actually need, something crazy like that?
Yeah, when you run, apparently, so this was in today's veterinary business, Dr. Lester had an article there every month, and this month was talking about the shortage, the veterinary workforce shortage. And when you look at the growth of the profession, the number of jobs currently open, the rate of turnover, all of these things, right? And you crunch those numbers, his results were that we have 30 years worth of graduating we need to do to meet the needs of veterinary medicine on the technician side. 30 years. If we focus solely on graduating people into the profession. So what that tells me when I look at that is then what we need to do, rather than focusing on the pipeline, which I don't really like that term, but rather than focusing on bringing people into the profession, we need to focus on keeping people in the profession and bringing people back to the profession. And I don't know if it was his article or another article that I read this week that said that there was a survey that like the majority of people who left the profession would come back. to
Yeah,
become,
that was
work
in that
veterinary
four
medicine.
things that's kind of making the rounds right now.
They would come back. They want to work
Yeah.
in vet med. And the reason they left is because they were not paid well enough. They couldn't make a living. They couldn't live on what they made. They weren't respected and utilized. Those are the two. And then they didn't have work-life
and
balance.
the
But these are all
toxic
things that go
workplace
together.
culture. Yeah.
So, right. But, hey,
Number 1 and 2. Yeah. And those are fixable things.
Fixable.
Like
fixable.
That's what's utterly frustrating.
and in
is that-
shorter than 30 years.
Right. So
Well, yeah. Does that study factor in the fact that technicians last 5 to 7 years?
Well, I mean, but why do technicians last 5 to 7 years, right? What are the
All those-
reasons
all those
behind
four-
that when we look?
the big
Right,
four.
it's those things, right?
Right.
So if we could fix those things, we would retain
Yeah.
people too. So not
Yeah.
only would we retain people, but we have the opportunity to even draw people back to the profession, to
Right.
come back and contribute again in a way that's meaningful for them. I
Yeah.
apologize for
That's
the
okay.
dog.
That's all right. That's all right.
Well, and going back to Stephen's point, that's what I've always said. If you're trying to recruit veterinary technicians to do this mid-level practitioner, you're creating that hole that's already not fulfilled. So neither one of those is a good answer. Like, I don't want somebody with a
Right.
chemistry degree to come in and be doing surgery on dogs. Like,
Right.
what are you talking about?
Yeah, I didn't even really consider that as a possibility. In California, for a while, you could, with certain Bachelor of Science degrees, you could take, at the time, the old California RVT Association or California RVT exam. When they went to the VTNE, and actually even a little bit before that, they got rid of that. But I never even really considered that it was a pathway until I read NAVTA survey, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's actually in consideration. I wasn't even aware. Like I never.
The reason it's in consideration is because it's the veterinarians who are talking about it.
Right.
It's
Right.
the
Well,
veterinarians who are
Right.
trying to solve this problem for us. Oh, poor little vet techs.
Right.
You have this problem. You don't have enough of you in the profession. And
Right.
the vets are complaining because there aren't enough of you. And don't worry
Right.
about it. We'll take care of it. We'll
Right.
fix it for
Well,
you. Here,
and-
shiny new title.
For sure. And to your point earlier, they know it's a minuscule percentage of the veterinary technicians that have a bachelor's degree in veterinary technology that would actually qualify for moving forward. Like they're otherwise at least another 2 years away, and many people probably 4 years away. I certainly would be from even being considering going through a program like that.
Well, and the AVMA also sent out their own survey. I don't know if you guys saw
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And Robin said, "Hey, can you help me fill this out? Because you have
Molly
a
said the
big,
same.
Yeah, she's like, you've got a better pulse on what's going on than I do." And I said pretty much everything we're saying here is like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul with these technicians going into this program, and who knows what's going to come out of either one of these surveys. They're probably going to say, "Oh, we got overwhelming."
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Results of-
exactly. And
yeah.
thank the goddess for veterinarians who are like, I don't know anything about this. Where's my vet tech who
Yeah.
can answer this for
Yeah,
me?
Right.
yeah,
Because
exactly.
Right. And that's an interesting point too, because, multiple, I've seen at least, I think 4, if not 5, state vet tech associations have like posted basically position statements about this survey and what have you. And we with CARFTA, actually called an emergency meeting this past week to discuss it and a couple of other things as well. And, our viewpoint was like, shoot, we before we put out a position statement, we probably need to poll our membership and see like where our people lie. But then the discussion was, well, to Stephen's earlier numbers, like our membership, I don't even think represents a statistically significant enough portion of RBTs in the state of California to form a
Right.
reasonable opinion about that. So what are like we don't want to lay in the weeds and not do anything, but like but also like I do we have enough to go on, or can we as a board actually just say like, this is our viewpoint, like do we want to vote on that? And it's been a really interesting process, but a lot of, I can think of, Florida was the most recent one I saw, but New York, obviously, I think Missouri, at least 1 or 2 others that kind of came out in Oklahoma,
Yeah.
that kind of
Oklahoma,
came out
yeah.
and said, instead of focusing on this position, as Amy Newfield said, will probably not be around before we die. We would rather focus on utilization and these other things to keep the people we already have and utilize those better, or consider the VTS that we already have, which is advanced training, advanced testing, advanced skills, all those things. But why don't we use the VTS? Because there's no money in it. There's no money in it for anybody. There is not an institution that can make money on that. And yeah. So I'm curious. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, for the VTS thing, I think it'll be interesting because there are a couple of states that are kind of testing this in legislatively at this point, which I think will be interesting. And, my hope is that actually goes through so that we can kibosh this whole mid-level creation of some program and put vet techs in $30,000 more debt for nothing. So that would be good. I am really hopeful that legislation goes through, actually.
I mean, I had a really interesting conversation with, Stephen wrote that, well, I guess technically Stephen and I wrote that piece about mid-level. So I had a conversation with Dr. Price, who's the director of the LMU program, and they discussed it in the class. And they were talking about that because the people in that program, I think most of them don't have VTSs. And so they were saying, well, a VTS just isn't achievable for a lot of people. They're not able to do it. And I said, yeah, but they're not able to do a master's degree either. Yeah. So, I mean, there's very little, like, in terms of achievability, in terms of actually being able, like, being qualified and being able to do it, I don't know that there's a huge difference on that baseline between a VTS and a master's program. What I will say is that the VTS, if the people that they want in this kind of role are people who have verified clinical skills, then the VTS is what you want, not a master's degree.
Right. And, I think one of my concerns after and it's a relatively short time, it was only 4 years that I worked in academia, but if graduating veterinarians don't have any concept that degree path, that position exists, they're not going to have any idea how to utilize that position any more than they have any idea how to utilize veterinary technicians. And I used to ask veterinary students all the time, and I've said this before, like, they used to say, oh, I was a tech before vet school. I'm like, great, what state were you licensed in? Oh, well, I wasn't ever licensed. Yeah. Okay, so that's a conversation that we need to have, because like when you go out into practice, you're going to have all of these people, like, it's not like vet school. You're not going to be answering the phone when you go out in practice. And if you are, there's a major problem. But like, if I can't imagine what these people that maybe become or take on this role as a mid-level practitioner, how they're actually going to integrate themselves or find a practice that will even utilize them or let them do what they are qualified to do or trained to do or licensed to do, whatever it is.
Right.
I have a thought.
And not only that, doesn't even touch the idea of production-based salaries. And how veterinarians
give up that percentage,
give away a percentage of their earnings to an NP, for all intents and purposes. Who is going to do that? What veterinarian is going to do that? Especially a new grad veterinarian with $400,000 in debt or whatever it is they have. They want every penny. They want every penny. They're not going to be turning that over to someone. And a practice, I don't see a practice right now. I don't see practices really embracing the idea of this, except that large corporates, particularly those that are backed by venture capital money and private equity, will see it as a way to make even more money.
I was going to say they're going to be. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just going to say maybe there'll come a day where they'll, if normally, say, a very large hospital may have, like, say, 6 receiving vets, they might realize it's a lot cheaper to have 1 receiving veterinarian and 5 MLPs.
Exactly.
And so be it. Like,
I think that's exactly the model that this is aimed for. And I was just going to say the exact same thing, Jeff, is they're not going to want to share the production, but they're going to be forced to share the production. You know, I see, and I'm not talking bad about Banfield at all, but, you know, Banfield's very good at like, oh, we're doing all these tech appointments now, which is great. I love that. But I can see that evolving into, I'm going to have this mid-level person do all of these basic wellness exams, and veterinarians are going to then picket about what did we just create and why did we do this? I don't think people, especially the veterinarians and certainly the veterinary technicians, don't understand where some of these ideas come from. You know, there's these groups. I don't want to name them because I don't feel like dealing with a lawsuit before the end of the year if I don't have to. But you know, there's these think tanks that even many of us are not aware of, but there are these think tanks that come up with these ideas on how to make an extra buck. And they frame it as, this is going to be a helpful solution for the veterinary industry. We're going to help technicians. We're going to help doctors. No.
Well, in the thought that I've been formulating just as we've been having this conversation, you know, we talk about this person that's going to take this role on of doing all these things, and we say, oh, a VTS would be perfect to just slide into that role. I realize that there's all kinds of legal things that need to happen with the practice acts and all that stuff, but what if there was a VTS in whatever we want to call this, VTS VN or something like that, or nurse practitioner, whatever it is. How difficult would that be to do that, aside from the big step of opening up the Practice Act to say these are VTSs in this very focused idea? How does that happen? Or does
I think that's already kind of happening with the pieces of legislation that are kind of looking at utilizing VTSs in that way. And I've heard the term, and I actually like it, advanced practice veterinary technician.
Yeah.
Just like advanced practice veterinary or advanced practice nurse in the human world. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think there would only need to be very minor changes within the veterinary practice acts instead of kind of this curriculum review degree based thing. And I mean, going back to what Liz said earlier, if you want someone with clinical experience, the VTSs are the way to go. You know, you have to have a doctor sign up that you have mastery of this. Most of the VTSs now are requiring that a specialist are signing off these mastery of skills. And you're actually showing your knowledge. And most of these programs that I'm hearing about are online. And I'm like, I don't want somebody to do minor surgery or prescribing that has done an 18-month online course. I'm sorry, like,
right. No, I agree.
Pretentious, but no.
Yeah.
And I think the VTS, you know, there are 16 VTS academies now. The potential exists certainly for more if they can meet the requirements set forth by the CVTS to become academies. And I think that you know, people are like, well, what, you know, how are you going to use a VTS ECC? They're so super specialized. They're so like, this isn't going to help with the veterinary workforce shortage, just using VTSs more. And I'm like, well, I 100% disagree, of course. But also when we look at some of these other academies like derm or optho or dentistry, and we can think about how those VTSs could be utilized in those practices, or even in a GP setting, a high-level GP setting, you can use those people with those particular skills and specialties to really extend the service that you can provide. So maybe, you know, it's not at that initial level, and I know that's where everybody is focusing on, is at the first level, the first presentation level, the GP, right? Because that's where people are having trouble getting in and getting seen. And so we should focus there. But I think that focus should be more on those things we need to do to keep people in the profession and bring people back to the profession.
I agree. So we're like a little bit over an hour.
Oh, we are. My goodness, that's a long tap room, y'all.
That's that's like two,
Well,
3 times as long as our normal ones.
Merry Christmas to the
Yeah.
caffeinators.
Yeah.
Well, you had twice as many. You had 100% more people.
That's true. That's true.
Yes. So I don't want to keep you guys anymore. But I just wanted to circle back. We mentioned it already a couple of times, and you guys, I'm only asking this because you guys both shared Amy's podcast episode today. And we talked about, all of these changes that frankly are just going to take so long, regardless of where you stand on, what you want your title to be. And I think Amy made a very good point about forget about the title. These are the more important facets of the BNI. And I think one that has always been kind of under the radar that is really important to me because I'm on the job trained. I don't have an AAS. It's reciprocity. And, the portability state to state. Thankfully, I was able to get licensed in Massachusetts when I lived there. I now live in California, but work for an Illinois-based corporation, actually New York-based corporation, but we operate out of Illinois, and I cannot get licensed in Illinois. Now, Illinois calls people CVT, and I have a CVT in Massachusetts. So when I sign my initials, it says CVT, and nobody knows that it's not from Illinois. But she really brought up, I thought, a very interesting point in the project management side of it. And this idea of the committee members and all of this, they're doing so many things. Are they diluting out some of these things? And I just kind of wanted to get a little bit more of your thoughts because I think it resonated with the both of you enough to share it a little bit. So if you don't mind.
Yes. I mean, other than yes, I don't really have a lot more commentary on that. And it also struck home with me as someone that does this myself, but I think I'm a little bit better at it. Is the same people keep having these conversations and these bright ideas. They're not bad ideas, but the follow through and the execution is frustrating. And I would love us to focus our energy on specific things that are super important to us right now, title protection being one of them, reciprocity being another. And I know, NAVTA has certainly said themselves, well, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, good point.
Well, I mean, I think Amy made that point. No state has changed the title, and the BNI chose to do title change first. I don't understand the reason. I really don't understand why that was the direction they decided to go, because they had good faith, they had the backing of people,
right?
They had a lot of momentum.
There was a period. Dave and I talked about this recently, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, where like a huge segment of the profession was on board with this. Liz, I remember you hashtagging everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was
know.
But I think we've talked about this before, is when this was presented, it seemed like the groundwork had been done. Right. And then
it's fallen off the rails, and now they can't get it back on. And like that, I think that's what's most disappointing is like it had like what felt like, at least maybe it was, false, but like not only just momentum, but backing and support. Yeah. And I feel like there was probably a time too where NAVTA's membership was growing and hopefully getting better, and they were going to maybe start to have that clout and all that, and it's just it's stalled, gone backwards now. It's really stalled out, and that's tough. Yeah,
it is. It's really, and it's I really truly believe, and that's part of the reason why Amy just hit so many things that I've been saying and that I agree with, and that good intention, that momentum could have taken us to 50 states with a scope of practice.
Yeah.
I mean, I think not really difficultly. Not in a difficult way. Anyway, we had.
I'm not editing that.
We had a lot. Thank you. We had a lobbyist. We had people behind them. The state associations were all in line behind the ideas. But it was a strategical error to do the title first. Yeah. I believe, and I think and I know that the V&I chose the states they did because they already had a scope of practice, and they already had some degree of title protection. So they felt like, well, those things check. So let's do the title there, and we'll just get that, and we'll get more momentum, and that'll be great. But because they hadn't done the groundwork that they needed to do to bring in, most notably the ANA, to bring them on board with the idea and get their backing, or at least, if you weren't going to get their backing, at least to make sure they were going to not fight you actively before you started. And NAVTA was told from the very beginning, we're going to fight you. And they still went forward with it. And that was just a bad decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of align with Amy where I'm like, I really don't care what I'm called. Cause I didn't choose veterinary technician. That's just what it was when I passed the VTE. That's what it was. I don't know why they didn't just decide saying, hey, why don't we get everyone licensed? Call everyone an LVT or call everyone an RVT. You would have changes across the country, but not in all 50 states. You'd have changes in a third,
just a few.
Well, two thirds of the country would have to change, which is not that big of a deal. And it's
but I think if they had asked which of these priorities is the most important to you,
right, and
then done it in that order.
Yeah, but
I know that people say, "Oh, it's so hard to open the Veterinary Practice Act." It's actually not that hard. It's not that hard. It does involve making relationships with legislators, talking to legislators, and then working on legislation with them. But it's not
impossible.
It's not hard.
Yeah.
Right.
No. And in some places it's not hard. Stephen's written legislation in California, not related to tangentially related to the Veterinary Practice Act. So, it's just it's a law that, everybody can watch Schoolhouse Rock and see how that works.
Yeah.
I think you are seriously underestimating the age of most of our listeners.
Ouch.
Wow.
Ouch.
Wow. We are all there.
You can get Schoolhouse Rock on YouTube. And if y'all don't know what I'm talking about, just look up "I'm Just a Bill." Just search for it on YouTube. You'll find it.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, we don't want to take any more of your time, but any final thoughts about anything tonight?
We could do this all
about anything we didn't talk about that you want to get across? Anything we missed?
Oh, Lord. I think I'm good for tonight.
That's fair.
Oh, mark this day in your calendars. The day that Stephen said, I
don't have anything more to talk about.
But I'll put me down too. I think this was great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come on and talk about it. And so much happened right before we came.
I know. I know.
Thank you again to Amy for her podcast.
Yes.
If your listeners haven't heard it, I'm sure you guys will put a link in the show notes.
We'll share it on our page. Yeah.
Yes.
It's 27 minutes, so it's half of this podcast. So
for sure. Definitely check it out. Caffeinators, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Vet Tech Tap Room. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. We wish you a happy New Year, and we will.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah, happy Hanukkah. We will talk to you in 2023, which is crazy to say.
Oh my gosh.
All right.